My name is William Mandela. In a time not so far removed from your own, I was drafted into an elite multinational task force. It was the year 1997, and it was a time when physics students like myself were conscripted for their smarts. The war against the Taurans, an extraterrestrial species we knew virtually nothing about, was the impetus. I was among the few who were selected because of our physical and mental fitness. The training was grueling, to say the least. First, we were subjected to the merciless rigors of Earth's training facilities, where we learned the basics of being a soldier. But the real test came when we were sent off-world to Charon, a cold place, at the edge of our solar system. At Charon, the days were a continual test of survival against a ruthless environment and unforgiving training simulations. Nothing on Earth could have prepared us for the conditions we faced. We were pushed to our absolute limits, both physically and mentally. And though the training was often cruel, it fostered an intense bond among us, the recruits. We were being trained to fight in all conditions, to use powered suits, and operate advanced weaponry. But nothing was more mind-bending than dealing with collapsers, wormholes that allowed us to traverse vast interstellar distances. It was a crash course in applied relativity and quantum physics, all the while knowing that every tick of the clock was years passing by at home. By the time we'd finished our training, we were no longer just students or civilians. We had become something else entirely, hardened soldiers ready to face war. Fresh out of the grinder that was our training, we were thrust into our first real test. Our enemy was unknown, an alien species someone decided to call the Taurans, about whom we had only speculation and theories. We had never before seen one of these Taurans, let alone fought one. It's a strange sensation, preparing to fight to the death against a species you've never seen, never interacted with, whose motives you don't understand. It was fear of the unknown, and that fear was only amplified by our isolation in the frigid alien landscape of Charon. Our powered armor, while highly advanced, felt both claustrophobic and terrifyingly fragile. Our weapons were untested against the enemy. We were walking into this battle blind, fueled only by adrenaline and fear. When the first contact happened, it was chaos. They were more formidable and alien than we'd ever imagined. But we were there to fight, and fight we did. It was a battle that pushed our training to its limits, but in the end, we succeeded. We had won our first encounter with the Taurans, but we lost friends. The cost of the war was already becoming devastating, and in the wake of the battle, as we nursed our wounds and mourned our dead, we realized we were further from home than we could have ever imagined. What felt like months to us had been decades back on Earth. Time, just like the Taurans, was now our enemy. After the battle at Charon, we were finally allowed to return home. Home, a word that conjures up feelings of familiarity and comfort. But for us, home was anything but familiar. Due to the time dilation caused by our relativistic travel, we returned to an Earth that had moved on by decades, while we aged only a couple of years. The world that I once knew, the society I was a part of, was now a distant memory, a ghost of the past. It was the 21st century, and yet I felt like a man out of time. The social and economic changes were staggering. We saw unfamiliar technology, strange new social norms, even the language had evolved. We were strangers in our own home. The people we once knew had aged or were gone entirely. We had become relics, reminders of a past that many had forgotten or chose to ignore. And the hardest part? Trying to fit back into a society that had moved on without us, trying to understand norms and customs that were alien to us. As soldiers, we were celebrated as heroes, but as people, we felt like outsiders. The juxtaposition was harsh. We were celebrated for fighting a war against an alien species while feeling completely alienated on our own home planet. But we were still soldiers, and as soldiers, we were duty-bound to serve. After our brief and disorienting sojourn on Earth, we were asked to go back to the front lines, and so, with heavy hearts, we prepared for another tour, another leap into the future. After the disorienting experience of returning to a changed Earth, I found myself back in the military fold. The decision was not an easy one. Yet, the world had moved on without me, and ironically, the military was the only place where I still felt a sense of belonging. So I re-enlisted for a second tour, this time as a major. Our new mission took us even further into the cosmos, beyond what was familiar. The promise of returning home seemed like an illusion now, the fear of the unknown compounded by the knowledge of what we had already lost. The battles were harsh, the enemy was as relentless as ever. Every fight was a struggle for survival, a desperate attempt to make it through another day. The comrades I had trained with, laughed with, we watched each other's backs. We were not just a unit, we were a family, thrown together by circumstance and held together by shared hardship. Even as we fought on distant worlds, we could not forget Earth. We were soldiers in a war we did not fully understand, fighting an enemy that was as mysterious as they were deadly, on landscapes that were alien and difficult. In the midst of it all, I found solace in an unexpected place. I fell in love with a fellow soldier, Mary Gay Potter. Amidst the chaos and carnage, we found moments of tranquility in each other's company. It was a glimmer of something beautiful and profoundly human amidst the dehumanizing reality of war. The completion of our second tour was not an end, but another beginning. Instead of going back to Earth immediately, we were put in stasis. This was done to conserve resources during the long voyage and to bypass the effects of time dilation. It was a strange sensation, like a long, dreamless sleep. We went in knowing that when we woke up, our world would have moved on without us once more. When we came out of stasis, we were met with an Earth even more foreign than the one we left behind. This time, centuries had passed. There were social, technological, and even biological changes. Again, we felt like visitors from a distant past. The Earth of this future was utopian in some aspects, but deeply unsettling in others. Humanity had undergone significant evolution. They had found ways to eliminate diseases, control the population, and even manipulate genes to enhance human abilities. Language and norms had evolved to the point where it was hard to communicate and interact with people. We were viewed as oddities, ancient relics from a bygone era. We were celebrated as heroes, but once more we were outsiders. Our home was now a place where we didn't belong. Amidst the chaos, the only solace was that Mary Gay was with me, but even that was short-lived. Due to a reassignment, we were separated. It was another profound loss in a long string of sacrifices. As I was trying to grapple with the alien world that Earth had become, duty called again. The war against the Taurans was still ongoing, and despite everything, I was still a soldier. I was promoted to the rank of a colonel and once more thrust into the interstellar conflict. This time, the battle was different. The Taurans we encountered were not the fierce warriors we were used to fighting, but more akin to civilians, unarmed and unprepared for combat. We decimated them, but the victory left a bitter taste. It felt wrong, like we were the invaders, the oppressors. In the aftermath, we made a shocking discovery. The Taurans had been receiving the same manipulated information as us. They believed we were the aggressors just as we thought of them. The war had been based on a lie, a miscommunication on a galactic scale. It was a tragic revelation. All the battles fought, all the lives lost, the sacrifices we had made, all based on a misunderstanding. The realization was more devastating than any battle I'd been through. We were pawns in a game played by higher powers, a game that cost us our lives, our time, our very humanity. This realization marked the turning point in the war. We were not enemies with the Taurans. We were victims of the same cruel game. Our true enemy was not the aliens, but the unseen forces that had thrown us into this endless conflict. In the aftermath of the shocking revelation, the tide of the war finally began to turn. With the truth exposed, peace negotiations started. It was a strange feeling to imagine peace after so many years spent fighting. It felt surreal, like the calm after a relentless, brutal storm. The war was officially declared over, and with it the purpose that had consumed us for so long. I was once more adrift, lost. Only this time there was no war to go back to, no purpose to anchor me. I returned to an Earth that was once again vastly different from what I remembered. And then came the most unexpected, most beautiful surprise of my life. Mary Gay, the woman I had loved and lost, was there. She had managed to survive the passage of time by remaining in stasis, using a loophole in military orders. Despite the decades that had passed, seeing her was like finding a piece of myself that I thought was lost forever. Two ancient relics from a bygone era, but in a world that felt alien, we found home in each other. The war had cost us so much, taken so much from us, but in the end, we found each other. We found a semblance of peace, a sense of home. The forever war was finally over, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, we could look towards a future without its shadow looming over us.